Welcome to the Art of Adventure. This is episode 158 with Dale Thomas Vaughn. The Art of Adventure is the podcast that helps you travel the world, run your business, and embark on an epic quest. I'm your host, lead explorer, and guide, Derek Loudermilk. Head over to derekloudermilk.com to check out the show notes for this episode and sign up for your free guide, which details the top 10 ways to make money online while traveling the world. I've compiled that from studies of people who've been on this podcast and the hundreds of entrepreneurs I've met around the world. So one of the things we do on the show is bring stories to you of how you can run a business while traveling the world. And if you've been listening to the show for a while or been thinking about starting your own location-independent business, it's probably time for you to sign up for a free business strategy session with me. I offer 30-minute sessions for listeners of this show. The easiest way to do that is either send me an email, derek@derekloudermilk.com. I'll send you back a link to my calendar and you can find a time and we'll hop on the phone. You can also go to the coaching page at derekloudermilk.com and there's a button for you to sign up there. On to today's guest, Dale Thomas Vaughn. He was back on the show in episode 66, talking about adventure and healthy masculinity. Today, Dale is on to talk about another arm of his business, which is media training for entrepreneurs with a mission. And lots of people use social media because it's free and it's measurable, where there's a totally other free way to get media, and that's traditional media, traditional press, which people often forget about. So TV, newspapers, magazines, etc. And there's still this massive need for quality stories on those media outlets. So Dale is going to teach us exactly how to get featured on TV and get our story picked up by major news outlets. He's got a 7-step process that's very clear. I even used some of these after our recording to successfully get my own publicity. Really awesome stuff. So without further ado, here is Dale Thomas Vaughn. Welcome back to the Art of Adventure. I'm here with Dale Thomas Vaughn. He was a guest back in episode 66. So it's been a while, but great to have you back. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, happy to be here.
And last episode, we were talking about purposeful masculinity, and Dale still does a lot of work around masculinity and gender. We were just talking before about some really interesting gender conversations in the workplace. But today we're going to talk about media, and Dale has part of his business is media for your mission, helping people, entrepreneurs, get seen for the work they're doing. And let's just start off with talking about why you came up with that name and what it means.
Sure. So I started doing media professionally right out of college, and I was doing it for major companies, really big companies. And eventually I realized I didn't want to do that. And it took me several years, but I became an entrepreneur. And the reason I became an entrepreneur is because I felt I had this mission that I was not being able to do because I was spending 50, 60 hours a week working for someone else. I realized that most entrepreneurs or nonprofit leaders are similar. They've got a mission at the center of what they want to do with their lives. And I spent a long time ignoring this media training that I had, this understanding of the media, this ability to get news for a brand, thinking that, oh, that was my past life. And I've been more and more realizing that when I bring my whole self into my business, I get better. So a couple years ago, I decided, why don't I use my media for myself and really help my mission get off the ground? And so I went out and I started doing publicity for myself, doing PR for myself. And lo and behold, it works. It works for small businesses and brands just as much as it does for big businesses and brands. And so the reason I wanted to start this training around media for your mission is to help other entrepreneurs who feel like they've got a calling, something that's big and purposeful and powerful that they really care about. And I know how hard it is to be on the edge, waiting every month to see if another client's going to come in or more sales are going to come in. And being invisible is one of the biggest problems when you're an entrepreneur. It's like, how do I get seen in this messy web of a marketplace? So I
Yes.
love, yeah, so I love what I do now. I get to help people who have really strong purposes and missions get seen.
Perfect. Yeah, and there's a lot of advice out there as it pertains to social media
Right.
and how to use that. I think largely because that's free and people are looking to use that instead of maybe paid advertising, Facebook or Google marketing. And then this is sort of, traditional media. I don't know if have people forgotten about this.
Well, I think you're right. So I think because social media seems easier, people choose to use social media. It's easy to look at social media and measure, okay, I got this many likes, this much engagement. It's more measurable. But one of the things you'll notice is that the people who are getting a lot of social media engagement are doing media around their work. And it seems like chicken or the egg, but I can tell you the more media you do for your work, the more engagement you're going to get. There's never going to be a more engaging post on your Facebook or your Instagram or your Twitter feeds than something you did for a podcast your people care about, or a radio show your people listen to, or a TV show. Those things are going to get more shares than your selfie at dinner. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs use social media because it seems like the easiest way to go about the process of gaining traction. Um, but the truth is, somebody else has already built these massive vehicles to go reach people. And so people then think, okay, well, if there are these huge news cycles, huge news vehicles, how do I get involved with it? It seems like my story's not big enough. And that's one of the biggest things we have to overcome as entrepreneurs, is realizing that our story is big enough that when you tell your story well, there's actually a huge demand for your story. So I think one of the biggest hurdles people have to get over in the entrepreneurial game is realizing that there's so much news out there. In fact, the numbers are staggering. There are 3 million blog posts written every single day. There are 3.3 billion podcast downloads every year. 1 in 5 Americans now listen to a podcast monthly. 7,000 magazines in the U.S., and the average American reads over 30 minutes a day. There are 15,000 radio stations, and 241 million people in America listen to the radio each week. So there's a massive need for stories
Mm.
on a daily basis. And what ends up happening is the media tells the same stories over and over again because they're not getting the supply of new good stories. So if you are able to get into that pipeline and say, hello, I have this great story, my business is doing this great work, my product is amazing, and for these reasons, this is the story. If you're willing to do that, if you're able to do that, you can get access. So
Cool.
I mean, you're doing it right now, right? You've got your podcast. You're going to be on the Good Men Project. These are ways that you're growing your brand deeply, right?
Yeah, I'm excited because this is going to be a learning for me too. Because let me tell you a little story.
Okay.
I tried to get on TV because I
Okay.
wrote conductors, and we were doing the pre-launch a couple months ago, and I was like, okay, how can I frame this for the local TV stations to make it exciting? And
Mm-hmm.
right at that time, there was the um, self-driving truck made its first delivery, and the book is about reinventing your career. And I was like, oh, okay, these truck drivers, they're going to have to reinvent their careers. This is perfect. So I
Right.
called. So I was like, okay, newsjacking, perfect. Call the, I don't know, news desk hotline number, and the first guy, I was like, hey, I'm a local author. I've got this timely story, and the first guy was like, I got breaking news, buddy. I gotta go. And it was like, hang up. Okay, no,
Right.
no good.
Right.
The second guy, um, I started giving my pitch, and after 2 seconds, he cut me off. He was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This sounds really long and complicated. Just send me an email. And so, send him an email. Didn't hear anything. But the third guy, I called, and I was like, okay, I gotta talk really, really fast to get out my story so that he won't just cut me off. So I was like, hey, I'm a local author. I got this timely bit of news about reinventing your career with the self-driving trucks and everything. And he was like, go on. And I was like, oh my God, here's my opening.
Yeah.
So, and then I told him some more about my book and what I was thinking. And he was like, oh, that sounds great. Uh, I'm the guy who decides about the news and what stories we run, and I'll pitch it to the rest of the team and we'll see. He never called me back, but I was like, okay, maybe this is promising.
You got closer than a lot of people ever get.
But it's so it just seemed like a shot in the dark. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I just like found a number, called them, and hoped it would work. So maybe you
Yes.
have a little bit better approach.
There are definitely better approaches, especially to specifically TV news. So in my coaching and classes, so I teach every month at the Small Business Administration in Los Angeles, and so I'm also teaching that as a virtual course now. And
Oh,
in
cool.
that, we go through how to book yourself on each different sort of media. So in TV news, you call the news line, and you first person you get. First of all, that first person doesn't have a name usually. They pick up the phone and they say newsroom, and you're supposed to know what you need to say at that point. And if you have a name, then you just start pitching that person. That person usually isn't a producer, and usually isn't in the situation to listen to you. They're usually working hard. So you got to think human here. These guys are just busy. So the first person you get on the phone, you say, "Hi, my name is Derek, and I'm a best-selling author, and I've got a story that I want to pitch. Can you put me through to the producer of your morning news, or the producer who books the guests for your news?" Right? And that person goes, "Oh, thank God, this person knows they need to talk to a producer and not to me." And so they'll put you through to a producer, and that producer will pick up the phone and they'll say, "Hey, this is Patty. I'm listening. What do you got?" And she's already expecting you to be pitching, so she's prepared for your pitch. Now, if you're not prepared for your pitch, then you're giving her this long-winded intro.
Mm.
Whereas if you do the process of like, what is my lead? What are my three key points? What's my best statistic? Then I can lead with the lead, the statistics, and my three key messages. And if I do that quickly, she knows that I'm legit, first of all. So she knows I'm going to deliver good media. And that's the most important job she has is to weed out crackpots. To just make sure that you are legit. So at that point, she goes, "Oh, okay, so this is an interesting story. It's relevant because you've done your homework. It's relevant. It's relevant to our audience. It's a good statistic. That's shocking. Yes. Here's my email address. Send me your one-page document, and can you come on tomorrow?" Right? If you don't have your one-page document together to send her within the next 30 minutes, you're going to lose that hook. You may not, but unless you're a celebrity, you're going to need to be kind of on the ball. But whenever I talk to people about this, I tell them to be ready with your suit to go on the news the next morning or that hour. I mean, I got on CNN within an hour. I called them and said, I have a story. You may want me to come in and talk about it. And they said, "We do need somebody for that specific story. Come in and talk."
Wow.
So, and it's different for every media, right? And that's the biggest thing that people don't realize is every media is a little bit different. If you're good at targeting and saying which media are my audience I care about, which ones are they listening to, watching, reading. So don't target yourself toward the wrong media first. Make sure you target the right media. And the second thing is you do not have to be perfect, but you do need to be prepared. So going through the preparation of saying, what are my top 3 to 5 key messages? That's media speak for, I have a bulleted list. I know exactly what my topics are. I'm going to help you, the producer, and you eventually the newscaster or the radio interviewer. I'm going to help you lead me well. So if you have those things, you can pretty much get in anywhere. And the newsroom phone numbers are all publicly accessible.
Right. So when people come to me, pitch me to come on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
when they have, like, here's 10 questions you can ask me, or here's like the topics that are in my wheelhouse that I have good answers to, that makes it easier. Sometimes I feel like, oh, this is cheating a little bit, but
But But when you got to crack out 3 or 4 interviews, you're like, I will take the easy ones first. The fish that jump into the boat are the ones I'm going to eat first,
Yes.
right?
Um, you mentioned seeking out the places where your audience is paying attention.
Hmm.
Is that simply a matter of thinking about, okay, who listens to my show and what else do they like?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. You're talking about audience targeting. So when I go through audience targeting with people, I say sit down and really draw out your market avatar, right? This is something every marketer will ever tell you to do. But
Right.
age range, their key demographics, but start going into what are their fears, what are their pains, what are their worries, really understand their deep pain, right? Like I came on this show and right away started talking about how entrepreneurs feel invisible, right? So I'm already coding to you that I know your pain if you're an entrepreneur is you feel invisible in your industry. So then you go through what are your typical thoughts, stories, and quotes from your ideal audience. And at that point, you're starting to be able to talk in their language. I actually have people go out and call their ideal clients, their past clients who they loved working with, and interview them and get their feedback about what was important in their work. So then you look at what media or social media even are my audience paying attention to. And you go out there and you look, and are they listening to these podcasts? Are they reading these newspapers and magazines and blogs? Which visual things are they watching? And you literally go and look at what are the headlines that work? What are the stories that work in those specific media? So what works at, let's say, the Good Men Project, where I'm an editor, what works there does not work in entrepreneur.com or Elite Daily, where I'm a contributor. So you want to know your market. You also want to know your market's media. And this is where a lot of get messed up.
How do you know what headlines are working?
Yeah, so this is where social media is a really good tool. So you can go in and look at, let's say, the Good Men Project. You can click on an article that you think sounds like a headline you could have submitted. So that's what I do. Go look at an article that you think maybe could be you with a little tweaking. That could have been me. And look at how much engagement it got. Right? Did it get a lot of shares, especially compared to any of the other stories that day? Um, and start to kind of pay attention to what stories are trending on Facebook or what stories you're seeing trend on Twitter that could be your
Hmm.
story. And at that point, you're going, okay, these are the headlines that are working. How can I take that headline as a template and make it my own? I'm not saying copy the template. I'm saying take the main headline at like BuzzFeed is these 10 quotes from movies in the 80s that everyone loves, right? Because BuzzFeed knows its audience. So if you were in that kind of space, you would say, okay, the top 10 quotes from books that every literature lover knows or something, and you're pitching that to a different group, right? You're saying, I know my story, I know what my key messages are. I'm just looking for the headlines that help people find me,
Hmm.
and you can hone that as you go. I have worked with people who have amazing headlines in the beginning and get tons of traction. I've worked with people who have to like really hone their headline into something that fits them. And once you find your first real hit, your first headline that's a hit, it's like, oh my God, there it is. That's what it feels like when I've got a hit. The
Interesting.
first the first person I ever helped make 1 million engagements um, was a guy who was um, his name is Tim Gessling, and he was doing some great pieces. He wrote a piece on um, how to live. He called it "I Lived a Day According to Benjamin Franklin's Autobiography," and it changed my life. That was the title. It's a long title, and everybody at the Good Men Project, all the other editors, were like, this is not gonna work. It's not gonna fly. It's too long." And it just rolled, and it's still every month 20 or 30,000 people read that piece, and that was 4 years ago. He's had millions of views because he found his headline. So
So it's not necessarily about how good you are at writing an article that you submit to a site. I mean, I suppose the content has to be good, but then headline. It
yes,
sounds like two different skills almost: headline writing and content writing.
well, yeah, they are. I mean, you. So there's two things. One, your headline is the most important thing about you getting read. The most important thing about you being shared is your content. So that sounds like the same thing if you're not familiar with it. But like if you were writing a blog post or if if you're in a podcast episode, the headline is going to get people to listen. The headline is going to get people to click. But if the content isn't good, they're not going to share it with anybody. So you'll get an initial round. If your headline is good, you'll get an initial round of interest. So the other thing that's interesting is longer blog posts. If you're a blogger, longer blog posts tend to get shared more. And we're talking in the 1,500 to 3,000 range and above gets shared way more than the 1,000 and less words. And the reason that is, I think the reason that is because there's more depth in the content. There's usually more space for a blogger or a writer to do some storytelling to reach that pattern that we as humans have come to understand as story, a beginning, a middle, and end, multiple acts, that whole concept. So if you're a writer, if you're specifically looking for blogs, you want to make sure that you do craft some longer pieces occasionally.
Cool. So we've got blogs and magazines and TV and radio and all these different outlets. How do you know which one to pick, or is there one that gives a sort of better return than the others to start with?
That's a good question. So I think one of the biggest things is to figure out where you feel comfortable as a speaker or as a writer. For me, I love podcasts. I love doing this kind of thing because it's long form. It gives me an opportunity to really get to know people, or for them to get to know me and to have a conversation. So I like that topic. I like that medium. I have done a fair amount of blogging, but I don't enjoy it as much. So I think one of the biggest things is find the media that you know will reach your audience, which there are tons of media that reach your audience, and then find the media that you feel comfortable in. I've done a lot of radio. I've done a fair amount of visual stuff on TV, but the ones I really enjoy are podcasts and radio.
Cool. Perfect.
And one of the other things I would say is you don't have to choose right away. You can sort of play. I like to look at this as, you go out, you try your first headline. You try all three areas. You try visual, you try auditory, and you try print. You see which one folds your way first. And this is sort of a numbers game. It's cumulative. So once you get one, it then gives you more credibility to go get the next one. That third-party endorsement from, let's say, a blog like the Good Ben Project then allows you to go to all the podcasts that are associated with masculinity or gender equality or social justice or whatever. And now you can say, I'm published at the Good Men Project. And they'll go, okay, well, he's at least credible enough for that group, so he's probably credible enough for me.
Right.
And then you might move your way up. So every time you do a round of pitching, I think of it as you're pitching one batter at a time, and you just keep moving down the lineup. And at some point, you're going to be talking to the Grand Slam hitter. At some point, you're going to be, pitching the Today Show. But it's probably not right away. That's probably something you're going to get to.
Okay, and I want to step back and just talk about why, what is the result? Like, say you do get 1 million shares on your blog post. You're leading them eventually back to your website or to your own business home, so that they can sort of become familiar. Is that the main goal?
For a lot of entrepreneurs, it is. It's come back to my website. It's join my list. It's buy my new book. It's hire me to come speak at your next conference. So there are a lot of different calls to action, and that's one of the things you want to make sure you're aware of is, what is this for? What am I doing this for? For me, when I do media, I'm generally inviting people to be part of some other teaching I'm doing.
Okay.
For someone like Kamanzi Constable is really good at this. He writes for gigantic magazines, online publications, and he's in it to grow his mailing list and to get speaking and consulting offers. And he does, because that's what he wants to happen. If you know what you're targeting, if you know what you want to happen, if you know which audience you want to help, and how you want to help them, then you can basically seed that throughout. So again, I teach at the Small Business Administration. I have online courses. I work one-on-one with clients who want to grow their media appearances. And so I'm coming to media to say, hey, entrepreneurs, you don't have to suffer in your invisible shell. You don't have to be the best kept secret in your industry. You're allowed to play a bigger game. Come and work with me. So most of my clients see not only tons of traffic, but if they're really good at going through this process and leveraging what is it I want from it, they end up getting the leads they want and the gigs that they want.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then, so compare that with simply just buying targeted Facebook ads.
Yeah. So the value in media is that it's free, first of all, like extremely free. Um, the second value is that when you click on a Facebook ad and go to somebody's page, you are starting somewhat skeptical on their page. That's what we would call a cold lead. You got to warm them up once they get to your website or get to your Amazon page or whatever. Um, when they, when your audience member sees you in their timeline as an ad, that is not as warm as if they see you in their timeline as a share, or if they see your story in their favorite media. So if I listen to The Art of Adventure on a weekly basis and somebody shows up in my favorite podcast, I'm going to be more likely to trust that person. So I'm going to show up to their website warm. I can tell you every time I do a podcast, every time I do a radio show, I get people coming to my site and not only signing up for whatever it is I'm offering, but generally contacting me and saying, oh my gosh, what you just said totally freed me from something I was stuck in. So
cool.
I get leads, I get gigs, I get clients out of doing media.
Sweet. Perfect.
Yeah.
You have a like a 7-step approach to getting media. I'm sure there's many things that I'm not even aware of. So maybe you could fill me in on some of the questions that I'm not even asking.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so the 7 steps, you've gone through a lot of them actually. The first one is really understanding your media. So targeting your audience, targeting your list. And first of all, you're going to need a list of somebody to contact, right? People think that media relations or public relations is kind of a one-way street, but it's not. There's a relationship involved with the people who put on the media you want to be a part of. So for instance, you and me, Derek, like we're connected. I haven't been on your show in a year and a half, something like that.
Yeah.
And we've been connected many times since then. So there's a relationship here. So if you do a good job of understanding who your audience is and which media you want to be a part of, you end up becoming in a relationship, like becoming a fan and a friend and a promoter and a cheerleader for the people who vice versa do that for you. So there's a nice sort of back and forth relationship there. So number one, get really clear about who your media list is. When people go through my program, I give them a list that's targeted for them. So, and it's 100 podcasts, thousands of radio shows they can call, about 100 contacts in the TV game, and several hundred blogs they can contact as well, blogs, magazines, print. So once you're clear about what the top 5 or 10 are for you, you can target those first. The second step is just hunting down the headlines and honing those down, which you've talked about. Sorry, did you have a question about the media list?
So that sounds pretty amazing. You just have like the emails and phone numbers of all the people in the media all over the States?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thousands. Yeah.
Is that...
Yeah.
That sounds
it's
super pro. Is that common? I mean, did you have to piece that together slowly over years?
I am good at research, and I am good at teaching people how to research, and I now have kind of a team that does research for me. So
nice.
most media contacts are available online. You just got to know where to find them. So I've compiled that over years, and I offer that as part of working with me. And that in itself is so valuable, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, you got to know what you're going to pitch them. You got to know how you're going to do it. You got to know, and you got to have the will, the strength of will. It's scary that first time you pick up the phone, right? It's like, oh my God, I'm calling the news.
That's what I was telling you about the TV thing. I was just like, I had to like jump up and down and be like, okay, I'm going to call the TV station now.
It takes courage. Yeah. So later in my program, I actually do what I call the pitching mound, and that's practice pitching with an editor or a producer. So it starts with me, of course, but I have other producers and other editors come on. And this is something you would be great at, Derek, is let's pitch somebody who has a successful podcast, who's done tons of interviews, who knows who can separate the wheat from the chaff quickly. If somebody were to come on and pitch you a story in my class, you would be able to tell them right away what was a good fit and not.
Yeah.
So that would unlock a lot of people and their fear of pitching.
It's interestingly, as a producer of my own show, sometimes I know something's not a good fit, but I really like the person, so it's like hard to say no. So I wonder if you might be able to get in and get on TV, even if they're like, it's not a good fit, but we like you, so come on anyway.
No, I think that's true. I once you have one good pitch, then you have a relationship in general with the people who put on the shows, and you can start to pitch yourself more frequently. I've been on one radio show I've been on 5 or 6 times. I'm sure that every time it wasn't a perfect fit, but the person loved me. We like each other. We want to be supportive of each other. We're humans. I think in the end, people think media is like social media in that it's all about this up or down game. And in the real media relations world, that's just not true. It's a human medium. So when you talk about pitching, it really is like, how do you persuade somebody who you don't know in the beginning, but later on you do know? How do you, and that's when I think stories get really good, actually, is when you can go back and forth with the producer and say, well, I like this piece of your story and I want to put you on, but I need you to shift this piece to make it better.
Right. Yeah, and then it makes your story better. It's like having an editor go through and tell you what's good, or teacher.
And a producer who knows you and who knows you deliver good news, or good show on their podcast, or good piece generally. A good producer will spend time with you after they know you. Most producers and editors are not going to do that in the beginning because they're not invested in you. It's just natural human stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we've got
build your media list.
Build your media list. Get your headline.
Number 2 is your headline, hunting and honing. So the first process is just hunting them down and then honing them for yourself. The third is building your unique branded story and your key messages. And so what I like people to understand is that your story needs to be branded. In other words, Derek is this guy who has the art of adventure. He's when you talk about Derek, you can't not talk about adventure, right? It's part of the brand of who you are.
Yes.
So yeah, right. And increasingly, being a father is becoming part of your unique branded story, right?
Yeah.
So you're seeing how you're sort of branding yourself in a certain way, and that helps people categorize you well. They're going to categorize you either way. So you got to decide whether or not you want the categorization, or if you're leading them to the categorization you want. So at that point, you're clear about your unique branded story. Literally, you have bullet points, 5 to 6 bullet points with a call to action at the bottom. And those 5 to 6 bullet points are, who am I? What do I do? What are my clients like? A key story from my life or from this person's life, right? And then at that point, you're looking at, how does it work? So at some point, every interview, most every interview you do ends up with, how does this work? But that's toward the bottom. You got to teach them why it's important first. So that's the third step. It's crucial. It's the one everybody needs more of. It's the one that will have you succeed or fail once you get on the media as well.
Right.
And so that's the biggest one. And I love doing the key messages. So I do a whole thing where I have people work with me every week. I do a phone call every week, and people share their story or their key messages, and I help them sort of hone those down and get really concise with them to the point where you could deliver them in a bulleted list to somebody.
I imagine that
So
helps, like if you're at a party or a networking event, and then people are talking, and inevitably someone's like, "Well, what do you do?" And being able to tell it in an interesting way, everyone's like, "Oh, I'm a finance guy, or I'm a
yeah,
writer." If you can tell it interestingly, then people are like, "Oh, tell me more."
yeah, exactly. So, and a lot of people have this like fight, flight, or freeze moment when they get asked that question, what is it you do? And if you go through this process, it's not just an elevator pitch. It's your unique story. It's something you can be proud of. It's authentic to you. Authenticity is the most important thing when you're doing media because nobody is going to let you be inauthentic or disingenuous. So when I talk about authenticity, what I say is the level of media you're going to get is directly correlated to the level of authenticity you have. So be authentic with your story, number one. Um, and as you go into this whole media thing, the biggest shift for people is realizing that their story has value. So there's actually a personal development piece within media every
Mm.
time, which is how the work I do around purpose work within masculinities. That work actually has a little bit of a place in media as well, helping you feel safe, safe enough to explore your story and to accept your story.
I love it.
Yeah. So then the fourth step is campaign timeline creation. So what are the actual nuts and bolts of when you're going to pitch, what your goals are, what is your attempt to actually get booked, what does that mean? And so you write out a timeline. You say, okay, this is what we're going to go about doing over the next 6 weeks, over the next 3 months, over the next year. This is my campaign timeline. And your levels of success increase dramatically if you see your media as a campaign every time. So if you say, for the next 6 weeks, my campaign is this one headline, and you focus all your intention on that, you'll get booked if you do that well. And then what happens is you'll see the value, you'll see the leads coming in, and you'll see where you could shift the headline for the next campaign. And so you do your next campaign for 6 to 8 weeks. And then at that point, you look around and you're going to just not even recognize where you started. I
Mm.
have a client who within 90 days had more than 20 million visits to his website
Wow.
in 20 different, written up in 20 different countries in 5 different languages, because he focused. He was like, this is my first campaign. He got a first wave. His second campaign, he just lifted off the ground.
So, okay, I'm thinking maybe I could just think through and use myself an example.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a new project that I'm working on, a community for adventurous entrepreneurs. So specifically for people that want to create a business so that they can have the lifestyle to do the adventures, the travel, and that sort of thing.
Right.
That's like 6 weeks away. So
Yeah.
right now, I should find one headline that's based around making people aware of that
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then decide where's the low hanging fruit for you? What are the podcasts, radio shows, blogs, magazines that are approachable for you right now with the credibility you already have? So if you don't have a ton of credibility or celebrity, you're not going to be able to get People Magazine or National Geographic or whatever, right? But you could get the step just below that with the credibility you have, and then work toward National Geographic for your next campaign.
Yeah. So, okay, what would be a good example in this case?
Adventurous entrepreneurs, I think entrepreneur.com is a really great fit for you.
Mm.
Why not?
Okay. Okay, cool.
You could talk with there are other big sites like Mind Body Green that might be a good fit for you. Um, and I would have to look at other podcasts. I'm not sure. You're the podcast I go to here,
Yeah. Okay.
but
So other podcasts too.
yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's good examples.
So then the next step is, okay, what does pitching look like? We've talked a little bit about that already, but you want to get your key messages into a one-page document that basically says, here's the story, here are the statistics that back up the value of this story. So you notice at the beginning of my talk with you, I literally laid out a bunch of statistics.
Those
Right?
statistics help people care. They help people see why it's important. Is that
Yeah, they prove your story kind of right off the bat. What you want to do is use data in the beginning of your pitch. Um, every bit of research I've seen on successful media shows that when you have a good backed up statistic in the beginning of your pitch or the beginning of your article or the beginning of your show, you tend to get more traction, more engagement, and more pickup. So
cool?
you want to look at what is my key statistic. And once you've got all that together, then you decide who are the 5 to 10 people I'm going to start pitching. And you don't say I'm going to pitch 1,000 people or 100 people or 50 people. You say who are the 5 to 10 I'm going to pitch over the next 6 weeks. And if you're really smart about that, you could do that quickly. And then you could be following up with them over the next 6 weeks. But you want to make sure that every pitch you give actually does fit the group you're pitching. So we talked about press releases yesterday a little bit. When you send a press release, what you're doing is you're sort of brute forcing the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You're sending your story out to several hundred back pages of a bunch of media sites. No person's really seeing that. The ones who do are not likely to call you. They're likely to just run your press release on their site. So you're getting your story out there, but you're not really getting the feedback, the third-party endorsement, the engagement opportunity that you would get if you were pitching targeted to the group you want to reach. So
do you avoid press releases?
I do. Yeah, I do now. Unless I'm starting a brand new business and I want to own the Google search for my word or for my name, I would do that then. But I said this to you as well. At some point, that actually becomes a negative return because when people search for you, you want them to find the deeper stories. And you can't do a deep story with a press release. You just can't.
Gotcha.
So at some point, you're sort of astroturfing the web to get people to find you. So it's useful in the beginning of a brand, but I think what's more useful, like let's say you're posted on 600 websites and 30,000 impressions come your way. Those impressions are probably mostly bots, but let's say that's what you got. But let's say that is one option. Let's say you took all that time and energy and you pitched 5 to 10 people and you got 30,000 views from the audience that you specifically want coming to your website or coming to your brand or buying your book. And they saw you on a trusted media site that they care about. That audience is worth way more than the 30,000 you would have gotten with a press release. And free. So
cool. Okay.
Yeah, so I avoid pitching with a press release. I use a one-page document that's sort of a multimedia news release format. I use a news release document, but I don't send it through the news wires.
Okay. And that I've heard of like a podcast one pager when you're like if you want to go on shows, it's sort of the same across all media. They just want to see a picture and the statistics and some bullet points and the bio, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and your smiling face in a picture, that's important. Yeah, it's pretty basic. It's your key messages, but again, if you don't know your unique brand and story, you're not concise about your messages, you don't already have your research done, it's hard to pull that together in a day unless you're clear about what that looks like. So in my system, I basically give a template to you and say, you've gone through all your key messages, just plug them into this line, and you end up with a one-page document that is going to be useful. Like the one that I sent to you is the same template I would send to anybody else.
Cool.
But I tailor it more to this story and to you.
Okay.
And a little bit of work, I'm talking 15 minutes of work on that document tailors that thing to the right people.
Gotcha. So you will tweak it for each.
Absolutely.
Pitch. Okay, perfect.
Absolutely. Again, I'm establishing a relationship. It would be like sending a thank you card or a Hallmark card to somebody, yeah, there's going to be some pieces of it that are very similar to every other card you ever send, but you're going to tailor the card to the person. You're going to put the right address on it. You're going to put the right signature on it. You're going to make sure you're talking to Derek, not to just some other person. It's
Yeah.
important that you realize you're talking to a human.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
So then, after you do all that, you do a good job of pitching. Um, Again, and I walk people through exactly how to go about that. After you do all your pitching, the next process is, how do I capture the leads? So you asked this question earlier. And I have a list of basically 10 ways you could capture leads. An email capture, ordering your book, asking people to back your Kickstarter or RSVP for an event. You might just be wanting to build your social media following. So come follow me on Twitter. There's all kinds of ways. You see people using media to have their followers call a hotline, or call the senator, or call a phone bank. So there's all these different ways that people are going to engage with you. You need to set up what you want them to do to engage with you. So if you show up on the
So say I want to build my email list, but I'm on TV and there's not a link. How does that work?
Well, there's not a clickable link, but they will put up a link for you. They'll show whatever you want them to show. So if you come in and you say, yeah, go to artofadventure.com, and you'll see that you can sign up on my email list and I'll give you a free XYZ. This happens every week or every day on The View, right? Whoopi Goldberg goes through Whoopi's favorite things for the week. Oprah did this every week. Go check out their website and get this free thing, or go check out this thing and you'll get this discount. So it's using your space to say, come to my website, join my email list, and I'll give you my freebie. It's classic internet marketing right there, but you're doing it to a wider audience that fits your niche.
Okay.
I mean, my stuff is very niche in general. I'm going and talking about healthy masculinity, purposeful masculinity. I'm talking about gender equality, specifically how to engage men in gender equality within the workplace. That's very niche, right? But it affects a lot of people. And if I get clear about that audience, and I get clear about how it affects them specifically, I can go in and say, come to my website, or come to my conference, or have me come talk to your company. Or maybe my call to action is just to tell them to change a certain habit, right? And then tell me about it on Twitter.
Okay.
So that's how I grew a lot of my early Twitter following, was doing blogging and media and saying, come to my Twitter feed and talk to me about what is changing for you. And so people will come and talk to me on Twitter.
Cool.
And I gained about 1,500 Twitter followers from that.
There you go.
So for me, that was a lot.
Yeah. Super.
Yeah.
All right.
So then the final thing is just give great media. I was like, don't be bad when you get the media. You want to be good at it. So you've delivered a strike, right? It's time to stand and talk, or time to come on the show. So the pieces of that are important is, number one is to lead your interview. So to make sure you're the leader of the interview, to give the interviewer or the blogger or the producer the key messages you want them to follow. And make sure if anything negative does come up, you just lead right back through your positive messages. If you get a little off track, you just lead back to your key messages. So leading your interview with your key messages. The second is dressing the part. So even if you're not going to be seen, wear your costume. Wear the thing that is you. And I recommend wearing colors, not black or white, especially if you're on video. And just be thinking to yourself, do my clothes reinforce my key messages? Do I feel like I'm being an authentic representation of myself at my best? Because if I show up and I'm going to do this interview and I don't feel like I'm at my best physically, that matters in my voice. It matters in the answers that come to mind. It matters in all the secondary things that reinforce whether my messages are authentic or not. So be authentic. The third is smile. Even if you're on audio, people can hear the difference when you're smiling. This sounds so silly and it feels funny, but practice speaking to yourself in the mirror while smiling. It's crazy, but I'll model it. For instance, I'll just read a line. Unless you're talking about children dying of cancer, right? Then make sure you only smile when you're talking about how we found a cure and we're really hopeful about solving this cancer crisis for children. You can hear the difference between when I'm talking with a smile and when I'm not. And they can too. So that's if you're on audio and video. And the fourth is just be energy embodied. Be loud, be quick, use your outside voice. Let them fix the volume and editing, basically, and have that energetic posture all the way through your interview. This is also true when you're preparing a blog. Like I'll get a lot of journalists will send me an email and say, "Hey, will you be in my article?" I'll say, "Yeah, absolutely." Now they're not sitting down with me over coffee to interview me. They're sending me 15 questions to answer. So I want to answer those quickly, and I sort of want to answer them loudly. I want to be thinking like, how would this sound if I said it out loud? Because they're going to publish the stuff that feels concise and energetic.
Do you just put lots of exclamation marks and capitalize everything?
No. But it is be concise. If you're willing to say the thing in a long sentence, say it in a short sentence instead. Figure out how to say be energy embodied rather than what you want to do is be energetic.
Okay, and one other question is, in Talladega Nights, Ricky Bobby's hands keep floating up into the screen. Yeah. What do you do with your hands?
What do I do with my hands? Yeah, so I'm a hand talker, so I always talk with my hands. You want to be authentic, so be what feels real to you. The only thing that feels funny is the smiling thing. With your hands, if you're not a hand talker, don't talk with your hands. Just keep them by your side. Just don't, scratch your belly or, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They'll edit most of that stuff out anyways. Nobody really is paying attention to your hands. The only thing they see when you use your hands is that you're energetic. You've got so much energy, it's flying out of your appendages. That's what they think.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. And the final thing in giving great media is just be of service. Remember your interviewer's name, understand your audience as much as possible so that you are on point with who they are reaching. Be friendly, be positive, always follow up afterward with a thank you, and then offer to come back. Those are the little things you can do that actually make you feel like it makes it feel like you are being of service to the media.
Oh, yeah. I like that.
And yeah, it all boils down to your prepared passion. If you prepare, your prepared passion is your most powerful possession. That's TM.
Say that 5 times fast. Okay, so overall, this is fairly straightforward, but takes a good focused effort to adequately come prepare and find your ideal headline, find your ideal outlets, know their name, know the audience. So it's just doing your due diligence.
Yeah, and the thing is, once you learn this and you go through it one time, you then have the skill set for the rest of your career.
Okay.
So this does not change. This is the same thing I learned when I was in school for journalism and PR. It's very similar. I've just made it my own by cutting out some of the histrionics. When you look at media, most people will say, go hire a publicist. A publicist costs you $2,000 to $5,000 to $10,000 a month. And they're basically bringing you fish. You could pay that much money up front, learn this stuff, and then be able to do that for the rest of your career and know how to fish. It sounds scary the first time you go through it, but then you learn it's actually quite easy.
Yeah.
It's just a process you have to learn, just like anything else. That's the dirty secret. Everybody thinks, oh, I'm not good enough or I need a publicist. It's actually better if you represent yourself.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's just a process that's a little daunting, and we can all get through it.
It can be fun. I mean, it can be fun. I would say in the beginning, for a lot of people, it feels scary.
Yeah.
But the first time you reach out to somebody who who has a podcast, or you're like, oh, I actually really like that guy, and I actually would be happy just to talk to him anyways.
Yeah.
So this really isn't that scary. It's just me talking to Derek.
Yeah, and people that are on TV are usually pretty fun, or podcast hosts. They're energetic and excited people that are
Totally.
fun to know. Anyway, yeah.
And there's nothing that feels better than seeing yourself in the media in a place where you really respect the media. If you say, I love the Good Men Project, and you suddenly show up in the Good Men Project, that's such a cool feeling. It's so validating. It's like, yes, I'm on the right track. I'm in the right, and you'll
Mm.
get so many people calling you or emailing you or text messaging you saying, "Oh my God, I loved your thing. I just wanted to tell you it meant so much to me to read your piece." Perfect strangers will come out of the woodwork and say, "How do I work with you?" That's such a cool feeling.
Mm. That is
So
kind of like
it's fun.
magic. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, media magic.
Awesome. Uh, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to make sure people know?
Yeah, so I am leading the Media for Your Mission course now virtually. So if you want to be a part of that, go to dalethomasvaughn.com and you'll see at the top media training. You just click on that, it'll tell you everything you need to know to be involved. I'm happy to have a conversation with you if you think maybe this is something you're interested in, and I can just sort of send you on the right path. A lot of the stuff I offer is reasonable for people to get to. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're wondering if money is going to be an issue for you, I work with people. That's, my biggest thing is I'm going to help you get your mission off the ground. So I'm approachable as well as professional. So come and talk to me.
Perfect. And of course, we'll have that linked up in the
Yeah.
show notes. And
And
yeah, thanks so much for
congratulations
coming
on
on.
being a father.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. All right, another great episode. Hope you enjoyed that one with Dale Thomas Vaughn, DTV. Maybe there's something in there. He's got TV in his initials. That's why he's good at talking about getting on TV. Yeah, after this interview was recorded, I actually took some of the things that we talked about and successfully used them, especially to get on other major podcasts and just dial in my message. He makes a lot of good points, especially about getting your headline and your main bullet points and everything. So he definitely knows his stuff. So if you enjoy the episode, I'm sure he would love to hear from you on Twitter. So make sure you go over there and thank him. I'll have that linked up in the show notes. Besides hosting this podcast, one of my favorite parts of my job, of my day, is helping people create businesses that give them the freedom to travel the world, to meet cool people, to see interesting things, to spend time with their family, or to sleep in and really just live by their own schedule and their energy. So again, the offer is out there for you guys. If you want to hop on a strategy call with me, just send me an email, derek@dereklaudermilk.com, and we'll get you perfectly set up for that. And those are a lot of fun. And I love being generous to listeners of my show, so it's free to you. That's all for today's episode. Now it's your turn to go out there and be adventurous.